Welcome to Goldfish on Games, where the Amiga got quite a few iconic series over the years, and we're going to be looking at the start of one of them. Now you could say it's the best licensed game that wasn't a license, so lock and load as we take on the Alien Breed, which was released in two main versions. We have the original that came out in 1991, and then the updated Special Edition 92. That surprise came out in 1992. Now there was a CD32 port, and all of these were developed by Team 17, with the PC port coming out a few years later, and then a mobile edition quite a bit after that. The original came on 3 discs, with one just being dedicated to the story, something that was missing from the Special Edition. I guess something had to go due to its budget price. This intro is told through mostly static images that explain the formation of the IPC, all while some incredible music plays in the background. And then we get to that iconic title screen and that music. I wonder how many Amiga owners booted this up just to sit on this screen. Now if you give it a bit of time, it will then give you this scrolling text going over the basic plot of the game. But eventually we'll have to leave this music behind and get into the game itself. Now in the original we got just 6 levels, but in Special Edition that was doubled to 12. Now that wasn't just 6 new levels added onto the original, just about every single level has been redone, or completely replaced. Just look at the opening levels side by side, as while they both start on the flight deck next to your ship that brought you to the base, things diverge quickly. In the original, well, the exit's actually quite close, so there's no real need to go exploring the level to find it, meaning that you might not even learn about some of the more important parts of the game until you reach the second level, where, as you might expect from a game that just has a small number of levels, things ramp up rather quickly, which in a way makes this level feel a bit of a wasted opportunity. Something they fixed for SE, as it ended up being more of a tutorial, and more interesting to play overall, as you have to collect the keys before you can even leave the starting area, and then you'll have to explore the map to find more keys and eventually the path to the exit that you do get a few glimpses of, all while obviously dealing with the aliens. Now something to keep in mind as you travel from one level to the next are your keys, ammo and health, as they all carry over. So if you barely make it to the exit with almost no health or keys, well, you might find it a bit difficult to impossible to finish the next one. Now as we continue, we start to get a few more interesting objectives. Take level 2, where originally we were prompted to restart the computer core. That turns out, well, we have to destroy these spinning things, which doesn't actually turn out all that well, as it causes a chain reaction with the whole floor is going to explode. So you have to leg it to the deck lift all before the timer runs out. And this is how most levels end, with the screen turning red, the clock ticking down, and that warning blaring in your ears.
Warning. Destruction.
Now the amount of time you get differs on each level, but it's almost always a white knuckle finish when you're trying to get to that exit. Thankfully, more often than not, the route back is quicker than the one there, as you can find some shortcuts that will help, but if you don't make it, well, it's not a life lost, it's game over. Now as we've seen in the original release, the mission text and the actual level objectives don't always match up, but this disconnect was mostly fixed in the Special Edition. But that wasn't the only change in this version, as you'll have to deal with having more than one task, like taking out 4 cores. And these will require knowing the levels a little bit better, as you'll want a quick run from the last one to the deck lift. And some of these levels are actually quite open, so you can go wherever you want, where others, well, they planned the route out for you. Now the mission where you have to close the fire doors is quite interesting, as there's 4 of them in the level, but you only need to close 3 of them. So knowing that, you can skip one of them to make that final run to the exit just a little bit easier. Now the environments they managed to make are awesome. They start off having this very techno look about them, but the tiles and colours do vary as you go. With the ground even affecting the player movement, you can really feel your character slow down and speed up as you go over bumps and changes of elevation. And then you have those fire doors I mentioned before, as you can shoot the boxes on the walls next to them, which will raise them up and lock them in place, which can be really handy for keeping the breed at bay. But once they're closed, they're never opening again. And if your objective is on the other side of it, well, best of luck finding another route. There's also these electronic one-way doors. They're a real pain when you spot them and you realise, damn, it's blocking me from going where I want to go, particularly when it's leading to the objective, but you realise, well, they're actually the shortcut that's going to get you back quicker. And later on you'll find these switchable versions of those laser doors. And more often than not, the route to that switch is, well, most of the map. But if you happen to have the right weapon, there are tricks to opening them early. Now while these maps are absolutely huge, a good chunk of them are just for exploring for ammo and credit pickups. Well, if you're being generous. If you aren't, then it's padding the level out to make it last a little bit longer as you get lost. But they do try to be good with giving you directions or at least hints on where to go, with sections of the map each having their own zone number, which is even reported to you via the voice samples.
3.
But there's also a map that you can purchase that will point out where the lift, and quite often where the main target is. This is not an easy game. Not when you have limited ammo to find, and unlimited aliens to shoot at. They will break out the ground and then come at you, or they'll just spawn off screen and then chase you down. Which is where the range of weapons comes in handy. Now you won't collect them in the levels, instead you have to pick up those credits that you spot on the floor and then use one of the computer consoles to purchase the guns. All of the weapons are quite interesting. You start off with a standard machine gun, which is quite useful, but you can then upgrade to the Twinfire EMG, a laser blaster style gun. Now this is the cheapest of the weapons to get and makes for a decent upgrade to that machine gun, as you have a wider spread that seems to do more damage. The MPP Flame Bow Thrower. This launcher fires flaming arcs that will bounce around, useful for taking out enemies around a corner, or even just trying to take out an entire room of them. The Plasma Shotgun, one of my favourites, as it has a nice spread of hot plasma that can take out the breed with ease. But that spread, well, it can also trigger the fire doors when you don't want it to, blocking you in or out of some of the objectives, so use with caution. The Ebon Flamethrower, a lovely gun that can travel through the aliens to take out multiple ones at once. The range and spread might be a little low, but when it's needed, it does the job. The Rotox Missile Launcher. Mini missiles that don't fire quite straight, but is great for dealing with lots of enemies or the bosses, but not one I tended to use all that often. And finally, the Arc Laser Gun. This fires straight laser beams that will bounce off the walls in interesting ways, and does a lot of damage. Great for taking out the breed that are coming for you round the bend. You can purchase a few other things at those Intex computers, such as ammo, health, extra lives, or even those precious keys, which always feels like they're in short supply. And running out because you went down a dead end is almost as deadly as the breed. Special Edition, they had a solution to that. That firing on the doors will eventually open them up. Now this does require a good bit of firepower, and with ammo being just as limited as keys, it's not always the best solution, but if you do spot some and ammo in a locked room, it can be quite handy. Death and game over in the original version meant having to start again from scratch, as it didn't really have passwords, but it did have cheats, and these were reworked as a password system for Special Edition, that you had to activate by using one of the Intex computers and then just typing the word in. No on-screen prompt or option, or even a mention of this in the manual, you just went and typed in something like XXDFA to go to the second level. At least in Special Edition. And no, this does not carry over your weapons, or your ammo, or even your credits. And in the original, they really were cheats as well. Because they weren't particularly simple things, or even something that you would want to print in a magazine. As the cheat to get to the third level is, I can't be asked to play the first levels. The one for the sixth one is, Manchester United can't fly airplanes. Which is a bit of a poor taste joke, lads. To be invincible, it's, I'm immortal or something like that. Now instead of putting in a proper password system that could even save your progress, they decided that what they really wanted in the game was a version of Pong. But there doesn't really seem to be much of a reason to play it, and they must have agreed on this as it was removed in the Special Edition. Now something else that didn't return in 92 was those switchable laser barriers. And with those gone, well, they didn't really replace them with any new features. It's really just about the new levels. But I do think they play with the basics of the game in more interesting ways, like having far more unique layouts. Or even having you exit via holes that would actually have killed you previously. But there's some that give you a completely brutal timer to get to the exit. And the dark level, well, that was all kinds of eerie.
Warning.
There is also the interesting case of the PC port, as this was based on Special Edition, but it was also upgraded, with brand new artwork that had more detail and colour added to them. That for the most part isn't too bad. I don't think it's as good as what Team 17 themselves will do later on, with Alien Breed 2 and Tower Assault, but it also didn't get that let's just add gradients to everything because we have the colour count problem that some games had. But I think it's fair to say that the audio got a massive downgrade. And the game also runs uncapped, so it can be a little tricky to get to run at just the right speed, as it is affected by how many aliens are on the screen at once. Now this is unfortunately the version that you'll find on places like GOG, rather than the Amiga editions that I do think are a whole lot better. Even if this release did get more levels added to it, or at least so I've been told. I've not been able to make it to any of them. And to round things out, let's take a look at the mobile release of the game. That included some updated artwork and controls. But I'm not sure this is even for sale anymore. It has the original levels as well as the special edition ones, but also some newer ones, and these are the ones that you get for free. The others, well, you had to buy them. And because it was the style at the time, you could also buy credits with real money, to then spend on keys and ammo. The updated artwork is updated. I really don't like the look of it. But if you want the twin stick style controls, then you have to stick with it, as they didn't give you an option to mix and match between the older art style and the newer control method. but even that original artwork doesn't quite look right. I think it's a bit washed out and wrong. So even with those quality of life improvements of having the twin stick shooting, this isn't the version that I'd play. But it might be better on the consoles, as I believe it might have been released for the PS3 and Vita.
Player 1 required.
Player 1 requires first aid. Player 1 requires key.
These days I find myself going back to SE more than the original, as I think the difficulty makes it just that little bit better. Or at least I can make it further into the game before the difficulty spike becomes a mountain. There is also the co-op mode that I've not talked about too much, as outside of playing the demo with mates, I never really got to experience it properly. But it's always felt that this is how they meant you to play the game, as it really does feel like it's been balanced towards that. So if you ever get the chance to play this with a friend, then you really should do. And with that, I feel we've covered the game. If you've not played this before, then definitely give it a chance, even if you end up enabling cheats so you can see the rest of the game outside of the first few levels. Believe me, it's how I did it. So if you manage to complete it without the cheats, then let me know in the comments how much better at gaming you are than I am. And before I go, I would like to thank you for getting this far, as well as my amazing Patreons, who are all awesome. And they also get to see their name on the screen and episodes a week early without adverts. And if you'd like that, then you can join them for free. There will be links in the description. And until next time, I was the Goldfish, that was Alien Breed, and this was Goldfish on Games.